On this episode of iFilmmaker, we are quoting and invoicing clients. Welcome to another episode of iFilmmaker. My name is Ariel Martinez, and as you can see, if you're on YouTube, we are in a hotel room. I'm actually traveling this week, so is Mr. McCoy, which is why he's not with us. He's actually a little more busy than I am. I have a little downtime right now, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and record this episode and answer a very good and important question that we have here from Austin on Facebook. But before we get to that, I want to go ahead and read a few announcements that I will be discussing on a later episode with our friend Mr. McCoy. And but I think it's definitely worth mentioning on this episode. So I want to start with one that directly, well, let's save this one for last, since it's one that I have a bit of say in. But anyways, let's go ahead and start with the Red Raven. So yesterday, Red has announced, and when I mean yesterday from today, not yesterday from the day that this podcast is posted, Red and Apple, I guess, announced that now the Red Raven is available exclusively through apple.com, through the Apple website. Now, this is definitely a surprise, but I can see and understand why this would take place. So for a while, a lot of Red fans and those that have actually purchased the Red Raven without having received it yet have been thinking that Red has completely abandoned the Raven. A lot of people have been waiting for their Red Raven for a very long time, having pre-ordered it and everything, and they still have not received it. And I guess this is a collaboration that Red and Apple have been working on for quite some time now. And so yesterday was the official announcement. You can now purchase the Red Raven through the Apple, exclusively only through the Apple website. Now, it does come as an entire kit, so it's not only the brain that you're getting. So in that kit, you're getting the Red Raven 4.5K camera brain, which is the body alone. You get the 4.7-inch monitor that the Raven usually comes with, the outrigger handle, which is pretty cool, the V-Lock I/O expander. You get a Red Mini Mag, 120 gigabyte. Mini Mag, those things are not cheap. I know that from experience. 2 IDX dual C95 batteries with the charger. They look like V-mount batteries from what I can see here. And you get a G Technology, basically a mini mag reader from G-Tech. So that's pretty cool. And this is pretty cool. You get a Sigma 18-35 f1.8, which is actually the lens that I use. I use it to record these episodes. I love that lens very, very much. Highly considering the 50-100 f1.8 from the Art series of Sigma. You will get it's called the Nanook heavy duty camera case, which looks fantastic. If you look at the image, it looks really, really good. This is it seems like it's going to be basically a cutout foam where you can put all of basically everything that you get with this package. You will get that case with it. You also get a copy of Final Cut Pro 10 with your Mac and whatnot, and full control iOS app for the Raven camera kit. So it's pretty cool. All of this is going for, I believe, $15,000 on the Apple Store. It came out to, let me see, should have had this before, but I didn't. So it's coming out to, yes, $15,000 on the Apple Store, which I'm pretty sure you can finance. But it seems like a pretty solid deal for $15,000 to get all that stuff. I mean, from Red, I think that's a very, very solid deal. in terms of bang for your buck. So if you're considering going into that much higher end filmmaking and videography, if you're trying to take your work to the next level, I think this is a really good option. And the fact that it's being backed by Apple now, I think it brings, I mean, in the past, you know, obviously the way Red would usually work is you order your Red and you never know when you're going to get it. And that's what actually happened with the Red Raven. A lot of people were not happy about that, but I think it brings some level of credibility now and sense of relief, I guess. By ordering it from Apple, you know that it's backed by Apple, a very reputable company in the sense of, you know, they'll take care of you, at least from my experience. And so I think it's a really good option now. It's a very good top contender in the high end. Well, I say high end, but high end in I guess the level of industry that I'm working with at the moment. So it's a really good option, really good option. In addition to that, you know, there have been some mixed feelings about this announcement. Some people have taken on Facebook saying how it's a good idea, how it's a bad idea, how they're not happy about it at all. They've been waiting for the Red Raven, and now they go and do this. I don't know where that's coming from, because I don't see anywhere where it says that the orders are not going to be filled, you know. So and so Jared Land, he's the president of Red Digital Cinema, has actually gone on Facebook and tried responding to a bunch of these I guess naysayers. And one of his last comments, it says, "You are not completely wrong, but it has nothing to do with the hydrogen," meaning the phone that they just released. Apple gets Raven only because of their new investment into their Mac Pro hardware program. This was the deal. Sometimes you got to take one for the team to push the much bigger cause. I hope everyone can read between those lines and congratulate Apple for putting some skin back into the game, so that many assume they just abandoned. And he's not entirely wrong on this, because a lot of people thought that Apple was pretty much over the entire professional cinematography, professional videography, and filmmaking industry when they came out with the Final Cut Pro X software. And all professional videographers, all professional editors that used Final Cut Pro 7 then migrated over to Premiere Pro, which Adobe has been killing that game, and I don't think that anyone's going to take that away from them. But what Jared is saying is that I think now Apple is telling everyone, hey, look, we haven't abandoned you. Well, they kind of did, so they really can't say that. But we're back, and we're coming back with a bang by giving you the Red Raven now. So, I mean, I guess it's, you know, I guess take that at face value. But in my opinion, I just think it tells a lot more. It gives more credibility in the sense that you'll get your product when you order it. So that is my opinion on that. For you Sony shooters, the very popular Sony 18-105 f4 zoom gets a firmware update to a version 4.04. So check that out. I don't have that. It's a lens. I'm sorry. This is a lens that it's, you know, you can update the firmware on it. They just released a version 4.0 on this, so you can go ahead and check that out. Another thing for you Sony users, so this is something strange and very, I guess, it concerns me because I've already went ahead and did my firmware update. So in the previous episode, Sony has come out with a new firmware update for our Sony FS5. Me and Mr. McCoy have been talking about this. We've been excited about this and the different features that it brings. The hybrid log gamma, the being able to go down to ISO 1000, or is it 16? Yeah, ISO 1600 instead of 3200 when shooting S-Log2 or S-Log3, which is a big deal for us. That is really, really good. That way, when we're shooting outdoors in S-Log2 or 3 like I usually do, I don't have to have that ISO jacked up to 32. I can bring it back down to 1600, so that's a big deal. Another big deal was the 120 frames per second at 1080. In 1080 in continuous shooting, but that was on a separate update. However, anyways, all of these updates, basically, Sony just took it back. They just took it away. The 4.0, this is the 4.0 update, firmware update. They just took it off their website, and basically, they came out and said, we are temporarily stopping the download of the FS5 firmware. We're planning a restart in early August. That's all they said. And then it says, this is the official statement from Sony. In response to instances of firmware issues for the FS5 version 4.0, Sony has a date confirmed that these issues only occur in specific applications of HLG, hybrid log gamma, in HD shooting modes. We're continuing to investigate further and are working to release a firmware update on the coming weeks. We appreciate our customers' understanding. Now, this makes a lot of people like myself and Mr. McCoy very nervous, because I've already gone ahead and did my firmware update. Now, I haven't had any issues thus far. But it concerns us, because this is what we do for professional work. And if there's an issue that comes up, whether on set, I'm traveling, obviously, as you can see, this week, and I'm going to be shooting a lot on my FS5. And if I have a problem that comes up now, I guess I don't know how to troubleshoot that, and so this creates a real big problem. Hopefully I have no issues this week shooting, and everything goes buttery smooth. So there's that. Well, fingers crossed. Pray for me and Mr. McCoy, who's also shooting on set this week. He's running and gunning like crazy man over at the CrossFit Games, which I wish I could have been at, but I had this job. So just, things happen. That's the industry. So Rode, here's a good one. Rode has announced their new Rode Video Mic Pro Plus. Really, really cool. Looks very, very nice. Has some real nice buttons on it. Really cool. If you're on YouTube, I'm putting a picture on this. Apparently it picks up much cleaner audio. It has your low pass filter, high pass filter buttons. It's electronic-y, and it has and then the 3.5 millimeter cable, it's actually detachable from the microphone, so you can take that off and put it back on and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. Don't lose it though, so that might be a downside, that you have the possibility of losing that little cable. But anyways, Rode is, it's just another good product from Rode, it seems like. So the main announcement that I wanted to get to before is this new TSA, and I'm going to mention this more in the later episode also. I'll be discussing this with Mr. McCoy. It's the TSA. They came out with some new security protocols for camera screening. Now, obviously, this affects me and a lot of us that travel, and do a lot of video production for a living. So this is a big issue. Let me get exactly the kinds of. So basically, they're gonna be making us take out our cameras, and any other like major electronics, like basically things that are bigger than your phone, out of your bag. This is a problem because I travel with a think tank I travel with a very big backpack, and virtually everything in that bag is electronic, and I'm not gonna be, and it's gonna to have its own bin, and it's just gonna get crazy. Now, here's what I recommend everyone do for this, and thank God I already had this, and so does Mr. McCoy, is get your TSA pre-check membership. I highly recommend it. It is very invaluable, especially now that TSA is going to start, this is going to be a nightmare for filmmakers who travel with a number of bags. And it's just, I can't imagine the backlash that this is going to get from filmmakers, because it's just going to make things incredibly inconvenient when we're trying to move, get things going, and you're trying to catch a flight, but they're screening every single item in your bag that is electronic. And I understand the security measures that are needed to be taken, and I guess this is why they say screen, get the pre-check, which is really, really good. I highly recommend it. I think it's about $85, I believe is what I paid, $85, and it's good for 5 years, so that's a no-brainer, I think. So I got that membership. I recommend you get that membership so you don't have to deal with this headache. And what that basically does is you don't have to remove your shoes, your belt, your hat. You don't have to take out your laptop. Obviously, you won't have to take out your camera and whatnot. So you're good there. So you'll be safe. So I highly recommend you get that TSA pre-check. So I want to get to this question. Today we're going to have a relatively short episode. I'm going to get to one question here. Those are the main announcements that I wanted to mention. I do have to go and start shooting soon. So I want to get to this one question here from Austin on Facebook. He's asking, as a full-time freelancer, how do you manage invoicing, tracking your work time to see how much you're actually making, quoting, emailing, etc.? So the way I do most of that stuff is kind of loose in my structure. So I guess I'll start with, let me do this in sequential order. I usually start by sending an estimate or a quote, as you're asking here. When I send a quote, I use QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks Online, actually, so that I can manage my invoicing and sending estimates and whatnot directly from my phone, my iPad, wherever I am, I can do it. And it just makes things very convenient for me. I don't have to sit down on my computer, on my desktop computer, and do any of that stuff. So I can do it straight from there. When they request an estimate, and I already have preset estimates as to what each thing is going to cost. Now, I know a lot of people say that you should be seeing how many hours everything takes you, which I do. Obviously, I do. But what I tend to normally do is I usually round up a lot. So I have my half day rate and I have a full day's rate. However long that takes, it's within those hours. So a full day's rate is 8 hours of work. Anything past that, I'll usually charge a certain amount per hour. And so you have my half day rate and my full day rate. If a lot of clients like to ask me how much is it going to cost, this is only going to take 1 to 2 hours. Doesn't matter to me because that is simply half day rate. I don't charge per hour when I go on set. No one's going to get an hourly, no one's going to get a quote based on the hours that it's going to take. It's going to, even they could tell me it's going to take 1 hour to do this. Me having the experience of dealing with people like this, understand that they're not taking into consideration the driving time that it's going to take for me to get there, the setup time that it's going to take for me to get my shots set, the breakdown time, and then the drive back. All of that has to be taken into consideration, but my client is not considering that stuff. So what they think is going to take 1 hour usually takes about 4 hours at minimum. So what I always do is I always give them my half day rate. No matter what my client says it's going to take, it's always a half day rate. If they think it's going to be 1 hour, if they say they think it's going to be 3-4 hours, then I start going into my full day rate. And I explain to them that, you know, when you say it's 3 hours, you're not, and I explain to them everything that I just mentioned right now. And that's pretty much how I go about quoting. And I mean, and this really, obviously, this entails just work that I do on my own. If this requires me to bring anyone else on set, usually I like to have either a production assistant with me. If in the editing process I have to bring in some sort of animator or motion graphic artist, I'll have to take that into account as well. But I have a few that I work with that I usually, you know, they help me with their pricing. That way I don't have to charge my clients so much, but the price is what it is. So that's how I go about quoting. I don't really check the hourly rate. And then when it comes to the editing process, you know, if I think it's going to take me, let's say I can literally get this done in 2 days, but that's 2 days, like 3 hours, a 3-hour session, then maybe another 3 to 4 hour session. Cause I usually don't edit like 8 hours in a row. I like to sporadically go into editing when I feel that I'm mentally ready to get to tackle this project. So I'll do maybe a 3-hour session in the morning, maybe another 3 to 4 hour session at night for this certain project. I like to take breaks in between, work on something else, come back to that. And I'm very sporadic when it comes to my editing and post-production process. So when I say 2 days, and then that's when I'll go ahead and chart. And then my editing rate, it's sometimes the same, more or less. If I know it's going to be a very, very long project, I'll bring it down somewhat. But that is something that I usually charge like on a per day basis. So if it's going to take me 2 days to edit, 3 hours here, 4 hours total, let's say 6 hours, I'm going to be charging my full day's rate. So every day that I'm editing that project, I'm charging a full day's rate for that as well. And so, you know, with that, that's usually how I come about with my quotes for my client. That's how I quote them. And with that, I'm through QuickBooks Online, I'm able to send them an estimate of what this project might entail. And whenever I come to a final conclusion, whenever I come to a final estimate, I'll probably add about 15 to 20% of what I came up with. In addition, in case of anything, you know, some revisions that they want to make, if they want to redo anything or reshoot anything, obviously that's a separate price. But like for any additional cost, maybe gas for driving to the location and back, what it costs to make sure that my equipment is secure, maybe for the insurance on set, etc. So I always add an additional 15% as a just in case type of deal to my quotes. So tracking my work, I kind of sort of explained that to you right now. I charge on a per day basis, on a half day and full day basis. I usually don't, you know, and then anything after 8 hours, I have my hourly. It usually is about $150 an hour after the 8 hours is done. So that's usually my rate on how I usually my invoicing process and my quoting process. Emailing, I mean, it's pretty normal. I just have a regular email. I use a Gmail account. And I don't think it's, again, I run my business as on a personal level. So my clients know me. I don't have any elaborate email and whatnot. But you know, that's usually the steps that I take when dealing with a client as a freelancer. So QuickBooks Online really helps me a lot to maintain that stuff. My estimates, the estimates that I send out, the invoicing, keeping track of who's late on their payments and who's not, and just basically keeping my books, you know. And at the end of the year, I'm able to just send that to my accountant, and they do my taxes, and you know, makes things very simple. So that's how I keep track of my work, quoting, etc., email, and all that good stuff. So I hope that was able to help you. If you have any questions on this, I would be more than happy to answer them. Go ahead and You can go on our Facebook page on the iFilmmaker, which, by the way, just a reminder, that's out there. So check that out. The iFilmmaker Facebook page. It's the hashtag, the handle for that is @iFilmmaker on Facebook. You can find that, and you guys can contact me there anytime you want. You can also go on my website, arielmartinez.tv. I'm working on getting a domain and specifically for iFilmmaker, trying to find the best one and get that going, because eventually I see this podcast going on to its own platform. So I think that that's a really good deal for that. Just to remind you guys that we have a contest going on still, and you actually have 4 days. It is, well, by the time you hear this, you're gonna have 2 days, roughly 2 to 3 days, to enter this contest. And I believe on the next episode we will be announcing the winners. So you're hearing this on Thursday, so the next Monday, the following Monday, we will be announcing the winners. So just make sure that you're on that. I want to see your interviews. I want to see how you conduct your interviews. And the top 3 interviews are going to receive a Rode Video Micro courtesy of Rode. Big shout out to them. Another reminder for you guys is that I have a film that I actually already released. I was telling you guys I was on the fence about releasing it to you guys because I didn't know how the film festivals were going to react. I mean, I don't know if they allow that or not, and I didn't want to jeopardize any chances of anything. But I looked it up. It was okay. So you guys can go ahead and check out my latest short documentary called Pivot. It is on my friend Steven and how he goes about life after he hit a pivotal point in his life where he suffered a major accident. And it was like 2 years ago now that he suffered a major accident, rendering him a quadriplegic. He still has some use of his hands, of his arms. But technically on paper, he is a quadriplegic. And how he basically had a choice to either just give up on life or continue and make lemonade, with what life has given him. So it's very interesting. I wish I had more time to work on it, but I had to basically put a stamp on that thing and get it out there. And I wish I had more time. I could have made it a little bit longer, but I think that it's short and sweet, and it gets the message out there. So I hope you guys enjoy that one. It's called Pivot. You can find it on my website at arielmartinez.tv. It's also on my Vimeo page, but which is pretty much linked on my website, arielmartinez.tv. So there's that. Don't forget about those contests. Bring them. Go ahead and submit those. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Hopefully Mr. McCoy will join me on the next session, and we can both get this podcast back on track. So until then, closing from the hotel room here in New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey now. I'll be in New York on Friday and Saturday. So if you're out there in New York, give me a shout out. Let me know. Maybe we could grab some lunch or something, and we can meet up. So anyways, closing off here, and I will see you guys on the next one. See ya.